Some movies don't just entertain us, they become part of our lives. They leave behind scenes we never forget, lines we still quote, and characters who feel like old friends. Back in 1990, one film did all that and more. It gave us a fairy tale for the modern age, and it made Julia Roberts the brightest star in Hollywood. That movie was Pretty Woman, and now, more than 3 decades later, the story isn't over. The woman who stole our hearts is coming back. When Pretty Woman first hit theaters in March of 1990, nobody expected it to become one of the most iconic romantic comedies of all time. Hollywood had released plenty of romantic films before, but this one was different. It wasn't just about love, it was about transformation, hope, and finding light in unexpected places. At the center of it all was Julia Roberts, then a rising actress who hadn't yet reached her peak. She played Vivian Ward, a woman full of life, humor, and vulnerability. Her smile lit up the screen, her laughter was contagious, and her chemistry with Richard Gere was pure magic. The movie wasn't only a love story. It was a reflection of a time when audiences wanted something uplifting, something that made them believe in happy endings. Vivian wasn't the traditional fairy tale princess. She wasn't perfect, polished, or born into wealth. She was flawed, strong, and real. And Edward Lewis, played by Richard Gere, wasn't a knight in shining armor. He was a businessman with his own walls and struggles. Yet together they created one of cinema's most unforgettable love stories. For Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman wasn't just another role, it was the breakthrough that changed her life. Before the film, she was a promising young actress. After it, she became America's sweetheart. Her laugh, her presence, and her ability to balance humor with deep emotion made her one of the most beloved stars in the world. She didn't just act. She made people feel, and audiences responded. The movie earned nearly $500 million at the global box office, making it one of the most successful romantic comedies ever. Critics praised Julia Roberts for her charisma, and she went on to win a Golden Globe for the role and an Academy Award nomination. Overnight, she became a household name, and Hollywood's doors opened wide for her. But Pretty Woman wasn't just about Julia Roberts' rise. It left behind a cultural footprint that still lingers today. The red dress and diamond necklace scene, the opera outing, the shopping spree where Vivian delivers the unforgettable line, "Big mistake, big, huge." All of these became iconic cinematic moments. They were replayed in homes, quoted by fans, and celebrated as part of movie history. What made the film stand out even more was its balance of romance and comedy. It wasn't overly sweet, nor was it just funny. It carried emotional weight. It talked about judgment, class differences, and how love could break through barriers. At the same time, it made us laugh, made us cheer, and left us with a smile. That balance is why people keep returning to it even after decades now. More than 35 years later, the announcement of Pretty Woman 2: A Second Chance has reignited that same excitement. For many fans, it feels like stepping back into a memory. For younger audiences, it's a chance to experience a story their parents or even grandparents adored. And at the heart of this comeback is Julia Roberts. Her return as Vivian Ward isn't just another film role. It's a moment of nostalgia, of celebration, and of hope that love stories can still shine. On the big screen, this sequel isn't only about continuing a romance. It's about reflecting on how far we've all come since. 1990. Julia Roberts isn't the young newcomer anymore. She's a seasoned actress, a woman with decades of experience and wisdom. Just like her character, she has grown, faced challenges, and evolved. That's why Pretty Woman 2 carries so much weight. It's not just a movie. It's a reminder that stories like people can have second chances. So before we dive into what this sequel promises, let's take a closer look at how the original film became a timeless classic and how Julia Roberts' journey turned her into a living legend. Because to understand why this comeback matters, we have to revisit the beginning, the moment when a young actress with a radiant smile walked onto the screen and changed romantic cinema forever. Time has passed. It's been more than 3 decades since Vivian Ward first walked into Edward Lewis's life and turned his carefully built world upside down. But the story didn't end with them riding away together in a limousine. Life, as it often does, had other plans. In Pretty Woman 2: A Second Chance, we meet Vivian again not as the wide-eyed young woman she once was, but as someone who has lived, struggled, and grown. She is now in her late 50s, a woman who carved her own path after that whirlwind romance. She didn't stay frozen in time as the girl in the red dress. Instead, she pursued her independence, turned her wit and charm into strength, and built a new life. She's wiser, she's tougher, but beneath it all, she still has that spark that made the world fall in love with her. Edward, played once again by Richard Gere, also returns. Once a ruthless corporate raider who measured his life in profit margins and business deals, Edward has aged into a man who reflects more, regrets more, and realizes that money doesn't buy back lost time. In the sequel, Edward is portrayed as someone who has achieved everything the world told him he should: success, status, and power, but at the cost of losing touch with what truly mattered. His character arc is about rediscovering love and meaning after years of distance. The film's premise is built on the idea of second chances. What happens when two people who once shared something magical reconnect later in life? Do they still have the same chemistry, or has the world changed them too much? Pretty Woman 2 doesn't aim to repeat the fairy tale of the original, it builds on it. This isn't a story about a woman being swept off her feet. This is about two people meeting again as equals, both carrying the weight of time, choices, and missed opportunities. Vivian's journey in the sequel is especially powerful. In the years since we last saw her, she became an advocate for women struggling to rebuild their lives, much like she once had to. She works in a foundation, helping others find dignity, stability, and hope. This new purpose shows how her character evolved from survival to leadership. She's no longer the one who needs saving, she's the one doing the saving. But even strong people have vulnerabilities, and Vivian's comes in the form of unfinished business. Edward, the film begins with a chance encounter. Fate throws Vivian and Edward back into the same city, the same orbit, decades after they last saw each other. At first, it's awkward. Two people who once knew everything about each other, now strangers shaped by years apart. Yet slowly the walls begin to crumble, and the charm of their old bond starts to resurface. This time, though, it's not a whirlwind. It's slower, more thoughtful, and far more fragile. One of the central themes of Pretty Woman 2 is the idea that love doesn't belong to the young alone. Hollywood often tells us that romance fades with age, but this story challenges that belief. Vivian and Edward's reunion shows that love can grow deeper, richer, and even more meaningful when two people meet later in life, carrying not just passion but wisdom and experience. The humor, of course, is still there. Vivian's sharp wit hasn't dulled, and Edward's polished charm remains intact. But there's also a layer of melancholy, a sense of time lost, of years that cannot be reclaimed. The film doesn't shy away from that truth. Instead, it leans into it, giving us a story that is both heartwarming and bittersweet. Supporting characters also bring fresh energy. Vivian's grown daughter, skeptical of Edward's return, challenges both of them to prove that this isn't just nostalgia. Edward's colleagues, seeing him soften in ways they've never witnessed, add both conflict and comedy. The world around them has changed, faster, busier, more digital. Yet the film reminds us that human connection, real love, is timeless, visually. The movie is designed to echo the first film while showing growth. The elegant Beverly Hills hotels, the glitzy fashion moments, the opera, all of those callbacks return, but reimagined. Only this time, Vivian doesn't step into Edward's world to fit in. Instead, they both step into each other's worlds. Finding balance. At its core, Pretty Woman 2: A Second Chance is not a repeat of the first film's Cinderella story. It's about two people who already had their fairy tale ending, lost it, and now discover that sometimes life gives you another shot at love. It's a story about healing, about realizing that even after mistakes and missed opportunities, it's never too late to find happiness, and perhaps most importantly, it's a story that belongs not just to Vivian and Edward, but to the audience too. Many fans who saw the first film in theaters are now older themselves. They've lived through love, heartbreak, marriages, divorces, and second chances. This sequel mirrors their journeys, reminding them that their own stories aren't over either. By giving us characters who are no longer in the glow of youth but still capable of great love. Pretty Woman 2 dares to redefine what a romantic comedy can be. It's not about the perfect dress or the dream shopping spree. It's about something much deeper, the courage to love again when you thought the moment had passed. Asterisk, there are stars, and then there are legends. Julia Roberts belongs to the second group. When people talk about Hollywood icons, her name always finds its place at the top. She's the actress who could carry a romantic comedy with her laughter, who could break your heart with a single look, and who could dominate a drama with quiet power. But here's the truth: over the last decade, Julia Roberts has been missing from the kinds of films that first made her a global phenomenon. She never disappeared completely. She appeared in dramas, streaming projects, and occasional smaller films. But the magic of seeing Julia Roberts in a big-screen romantic role, her territory, her kingdom, faded with time. Audiences began to wonder, would she ever return to the genre that made her the queen of rom-coms? And now, with Pretty Woman 2 a second chance, the answer is yes. This is not just another movie on her resume. This is her homecoming. Julia Roberts stepping back into Vivian Ward's shoes is more than a casting decision, it's a cultural event. Because Vivian is not just a character she once played. Vivian is Julia Roberts' cinematic alter ego. The role that made her a star. The role that shaped how the world saw her. And now, decades later, she gets to revisit that story. But this time, with all the layers of her real-life journey woven into the performance. Think about it. When Julia first played Vivian, she was in her early 20s. She brought innocence, charm, and a sense of discovery to the character. Audiences saw her as fresh, new, and full of promise. Now, in her 50s, she returns with everything she's learned about acting, about fame, about life itself. She brings maturity, depth, and wisdom. The Vivian of today isn't just Julia pretending to be young again. She's Julia showing us that stories can grow as we grow. Hollywood rarely gives actresses this kind of chance. Male actors often revisit old roles in their later years, but for women, it's different. That's why this film matters so much. It's not just about nostalgia, it's about rewriting the rules. Julia Roberts isn't returning as a side character or as someone's mother in the background. She's returning as the star. She's once again the beating heart of the story. The industry is already buzzing about what this means. Critics are calling it her big comeback, comparing it to moments when legends like Meryl Streep or Barbra Streisand reclaimed the spotlight. Studios know the power Julia Roberts still has. She's not just an actress, she's a brand, a symbol of a certain kind of movie magic that audiences crave but rarely find anymore. And in a world dominated by superhero blockbusters and streaming content, the return of Julia Roberts in a theatrical romantic film feels almost revolutionary. But beyond the business side, there's the emotional side. For fans who grew up watching Pretty Woman, this comeback is deeply personal. They remember renting the VHS tape or watching the film on TV late at night, or even seeing it in theaters back in 1990. Julia Roberts wasn't just a star on the screen, she was part of their lives. Her smile represented joy, her tears represented heartbreak, her victories represented hope. Now those same fans, older and wiser, will see her return. And it's like reconnecting with an old friend you never thought you'd see again. For Julia herself, this role is more than a job. It's a chance to revisit a character who defined her, but also to show how much both she and Vivian have grown. It's about closing a circle. It's about honoring the past while embracing the present. Imagine her walking onto the set, stepping into Vivian's world again after 35 years. The costumes, the lights, the energy, it must feel like time travel. But instead of trying to recreate who she was, Julia brings who she is now. That's what makes it powerful. In the story, Vivian has found her voice, her strength, her purpose. In real life, Julia Roberts has done the same. She's no longer the Hollywood newcomer fighting for recognition. She's an Academy Award winner, a global star, and a woman who shaped an entire era of cinema. The comeback of Julia Roberts isn't just about revisiting the past. It's about proving that stars don't fade, they evolve. They burn brighter in new ways, and when the trailer drops, when audiences see her face again as Vivian, framed by that same unmistakable smile, it will be more than marketing. It will be a reminder of why Julia Roberts was, and still is, one of the most beloved actresses of our time. Pretty Woman 2 isn't just giving Vivian Ward a second chance, it's giving Julia Roberts one too. A second chance to remind the world why we fell in love with her in the first place. Asterisk, there's something rare about the anticipation surrounding Pretty Woman 2: A Second Chance. In an industry where sequels often feel like business decisions, this one feels personal. It's not just another movie release, it's a reunion. A reunion between characters, between actors, and between audiences and the story they've carried in their hearts for decades. Imagine the energy in a movie theater this December. The lights dim, the screen flickers to life, and then Julia Roberts appears not as a stranger, not as someone new, but as Vivian Ward, the character who became a symbol of love, resilience, and charm. The room would fill with quiet gasps, smiles, even tears. For many, it won't feel like watching a new movie. It will feel like reconnecting with an old friend they've missed for 35 years. What makes this sequel so exciting is its timing. Hollywood today is crowded with superheroes, reboots, and effects-driven blockbusters. Yet audiences are craving something more human, something that touches the heart, not just the senses. Pretty Woman 2 steps into that gap like a breath of fresh air. It reminds us of what movies used to feel like, when a simple love story could bring millions of people together in shared laughter and shared tears. And then there's the theme, second chances. This isn't just the plot of the movie, it's the heartbeat of the entire project. For Vivian and Edward, it's a second chance at love. For Julia Roberts, it's a second chance to remind the world why she's one of the greatest romantic leads of all time. And for audiences, it's a second chance to experience the magic of a film that changed how we see love on screen. The buzz around the film already shows how much people are yearning for it. Online forums are filled with speculation. Will Vivian and Edward finally get their happy ending? How will their lives look decades later? What new challenges will they face? And perhaps the biggest question of all, will the sequel capture the same spark that made the original unforgettable? But maybe the real answer lies not in recreating the past, but in creating something new. Pretty Woman 2 doesn't have to be the same movie. It doesn't need to recycle every moment or every line. Instead, it has the chance to evolve, to tell a story not just for those who love the original, but for an entirely new generation who has never seen it on the big screen. It's a bridge between eras, a film that celebrates what once was while embracing what is now. The visuals will carry echoes of the past, a red dress, a limo door opening, the glittering streets of Beverly Hills, but they'll also bring something new, older faces with wiser eyes, modern struggles, and the richness of lives fully lived. The nostalgia will be there, yes, but it will be layered with maturity, with heart, with truth, and that's why the anticipation feels so strong. This isn't about watching actors pretend to be who they once were. It's about watching them become who they are now and still finding magic. Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, and the world of Vivian and Edward will remind us that love doesn't fade with time. It changes. It deepens. It becomes more real. As December 2025 approaches, movie theaters are preparing not just for another premiere, but for a cultural event. Some films entertain, a few define eras. But once in a while, a story comes back to remind us of who we were, who we are, and who we still want to be. That's what this sequel promises. And so the closing words aren't just about a movie, they're about life. Pretty Woman 2: A Second Chance is more than a title. It's a message, a reminder that no matter how much time has passed, no matter what mistakes we've made, no matter how far we've drifted, love, hope, and joy can always find their way back to us. So, this December, when Julia Roberts steps back into the role that defined a generation, we won't just be watching a film. We'll be witnessing history, a second chance for Vivian, a second chance for Julia, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance for all of us who still believe in love stories worth waiting for.